So we're going to cover the last two bosses of Heart of Fear, which are Amber Shaper and Grand Empress Sheikseer, which I'm never going to say this correctly. We are going to just watch the normal versions, and I will kind of recap what the heroic differences are at the end. I do think that these are bosses that we can do on heroic, especially Grand Empress. I think that is going to be not an easy fight, but a very coordinated fight. On Amber Shaper, it's really going to depend on our ability to figure out how to control that construct and whether we do the strategy of forcing the tank into the construct the whole phase two and phase three. So, but
This is
we'll
one,
figure that out before we go.
yeah, and this is one of those fights where kind of once guilds have progressed through it and things like that, they may come up with better strategies. So we may, be adjusting things on the fly. But regardless, it is going to be a very difficult fight.
Yep. Okay. So let's watch the video and then we can have a discussion. Let me know if you can hear Trey.
Formed, and it's just really cool. It's a nice fight. It's a good,
Oh, yeah,
lovely
bud.
fight.
Now, for this encounter, you want to bring 2 tanks, 5 to 6 healers, and a mixed makeup of DPS. It doesn't really matter too much
No,
what you
not
bring.
really.
And it is a free phase fight. And to start off, we're going to talk about phase 1.
Yes, now in phase 1, the boss has quite a few mechanics, and we're going to go through them one by
can't hear
one.
Trey.
First off, we're going to talk about Amber Scalpel. Now, this is basically a beam that chases a ranged player, dealing damage if you're hit and leaving little spots on the ground where it has been, which do damage if you stand them. Now, these are very small. Now, some of these spots will spawn an ad called a Living Amber. Now, out of the Amber Scalpel, all the spots that it makes, it will ever only spawn 4 ads per Amber Scalpel.
Now, these ads, all they'll do is just fixate on a random player and do like melee damage to them. They'll literally just melee swing. And the damage from them is pretty pathetic. It's not really too much of an issue. However, you still need to kill these ads, and when they do die, they'll leave like a pool of burning amber on the ground. They'll also heal any other living amber for 40% health and deal 70k damage to anything within 8 yards when they do explode, when they do eventually die.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that when you do kill them, that you kill them far apart and without you don't want to have too many people standing on top of them, because 70k damage is just extra to heal, which you don't really need to do.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter too much on normal, but it's probably a good thing to start getting used to as you're going to be moving on to heroic fairly soon.
So apart from these ads and the beam, he'll also cast something called Parasitic Growth. This is a debuff that is applied to a random player that deals 25k damage every 2 seconds, and if the target receives any healing during this debuff, it will increase the amount of damage done by the debuff. So the player who has this debuff needs to try and not take any more damage, because you don't want to get healed. But you should also try and avoid AoE heals just to be completely safe. After 30 seconds, the debuff would drop off, and then you could be healed up again.
Yeah, the only reason this target should be healed is if they're going to die, because of course you can heal them still, but it just means they're going to be taking more damage, so just don't go too crazy healing them. Just top them up if they really need it.
Now, the main ability in this phase, and all the other phases, is Reshape Life. This will turn a player into an amber mob that acts like I suppose it's a vehicle.
It's a vehicle, yeah.
And it can be attacked by both players and mobs, and you'll gain a completely new vehicle toolbar. So if you are using add-ons that make your vehicle bars fuck up, like I do personally, then yeah, make sure you turn them all off before you start this encounter.
Now, the amber vehicles, called mutated constructs, have a rage-like bar that slowly depletes, called willpower. Now, certain abilities that you use and are used against you will decrease this willpower. If you run out of willpower, you will not be able to control the mutated construct, and it will just fuck everyone up, and literally that would either need to be killed and then you'll die. It's just not a good thing. Just make sure you don't run out of willpower. Now, these mutated constructs have 4 moves that they can control and 1 that they cannot. Now, the 4 moves that they can control are Amber Strike. Now, this is basically a 250k damage hit to a target, and it interrupts spell casting. It also applies a debuff to that target that increases the amount of damage they take by 10% for 15 seconds, and this stacks. And now this is the first move on your new action bar, and yeah, this is one of the main moves you're going to be using as well.
Now, the second ability on your action bar is Struggle for Control, and this will force you to seize all action for like half a second. It increases the damage that you take by 100% for 5 seconds, and that will cost willpower.
Yeah, it's the only move that does cost willpower. It costs 8 willpower on yourself, and basically it just stops you from doing anything, which is needed to counter some other abilities that we're going to talk about very soon. Now, the third move you have on your action bar is Consume Amber. This will go and eat a pool left by a living amber. You know, it's very similar to Professor Putricide and ICC this shit, but yeah, you go and consume this pool, and this will give you 20 willpower back. This will also heal you for 6.3 million and add the same amount to your total health. Now, this is the third move on the action bar, as you said, and we'll tell you when and when not to use this.
And the fourth ability on the action bar is Break Free. And once you're taken below 20% health, you can use this ability and it will free you from the construct. It's your leave vehicle button, basically, but you need to be below 20% health to do it.
Now, there is one move that you cannot control, and it is a cast called Amber Explosion. After a cast, you will do 175k damage to all players. Now, when you are casting this, you've got to use your Struggle for Control move, which is the second one, and that will interrupt you from exploding on the raid. Also, on top of this, your melee attacks will always just do 40k damage. Like, so even if you're a healer or I don't know, like a mage or something, you can just, that's how you do damage consistently when you have this buff on you.
So in this phase, only the tank will ever be transformed into one of these amber constructs. The boss will transform his current target, so you must taunt off the tank immediately, as any melee swings that taken by Onslaught will take away 40 willpower, so you don't want the constructs to be tanking.
Now, once you are transformed as a tank in this phase, you want to be spamming Amber Strike, which is the first move in your toolbar on the boss, so you can stack the damage taken debuff. You also want to make sure that you interrupt your own Amber Explosion by using Struggle for Control, which is number 2. Now, the DPS should cleave you down to under 20% and then leave you completely alone, as you want to be in this form for as long as possible in order to make it so when the next tank is transformed, he can continue the damage taken debuff from the boss, which is from the Amber Strike. Now, DBM timers are like the easiest way of doing this, of course. Now, just make sure that if you lose too much willpower, you leave the Amber vehicle as soon as you possibly can, because you don't want to go apeshit and just kill the whole raid. So just try and just rotate the tanks back and forth so you can keep this stack going. If it does drop, then it doesn't really matter too much, but it's just a really cool thing you can do.
So just to wrap it up very, very quickly regarding those ads, you need to make sure that you never run out of willpower, because if you run out of willpower, then you essentially die and become a mob that's then going to start attacking the raid, and you want to stack up the debuff on the boss as much as you possibly can and interrupt your Amber Explosion. Yeah. That's more or less
so
it.
In phase 1, in theory, you can just, if you're very, very uncomfortable as a tank taking this reshaped life, you can actually just get out of it straight away. There's no reason for you actually to be in it. You need it for the next 2 phases, but for this phase, the reshaped life is kind of just showing you how it works.
So you continue kiting the beams away and kill the ads as they spawn, while the tanks do their thing in the vehicles until 70%, and this is when phase 2 will start.
Now, in this phase, the boss gains a buff that reduces all damage he takes by 99%, so yeah, there's no point attacking him because, yeah, you just won't kill him. And he also spawns an ad called the Amber Monstrosity. Now, the boss keeps all of his moves from phase 1, but now he doesn't apply the reshaped life on the tanks. Instead, he will cast it on anyone else in the raid, so your DPS, your healers, and all that stuff. And the phase ends when you kill the Monstrosity.
Now, the Monstrosity himself has a couple of abilities. And the first one is Massive Stomp. This is just a large stomp that does about 150k damage to everyone within 15 yards and knocks them back. So when he casts it, just make sure you move away. He will do an ability called Fling, which will pick up the tank and throw him at a distant player, dealing around 125k damage to all players within 8 yards of that target, and it'll also stun them for 3 seconds. So try and spread out 8 yards or more if you can during this phase. And you need to make sure that you taunt when the other tank has been thrown.
Now, his melee attacks will reduce the willpower of the Amber vehicles by 40% again, so just make sure that when you are in the mutated constructs, that you never do get hit, because yeah, it just sends you crazy quickly.
And the final ability is Amber Explosion. This is a cast that he does, and once it finishes, it'll deal 225k damage to everyone in the raid, and you need to interrupt this. And the only way you can interrupt this ability is with the Amber vehicles.
So basically what you need to do is your Amber Strike, which is number 1, interrupts cast, if you remember. Now, you need to do this when he casts it. You also want to use this as much as possible in order to apply the debuff to him as well. So what you've got to make sure is it isn't on cooldown when the explosion is going to come in. So just use boss timers again. Like this fight, if you don't use boss timers for some fucked up reason, get them for this fight, because it just helps you so much. Now, you should stay in your form for as long as possible in this phase, because you are literally just stacking it up. The only reason that you would want to leave your form is if you were a healer and you need to help with healing, and what you do, you just get your DPS to cleave you down. You should go and use your Consume Amber, which is number 3, on nearby pools if you need to get energy back, which you will do because it does deplete slowly. Now, you may come across a time when both you and the Amber Monstrosity are casting Amber Explosion. At this point, you want to let yours through and interrupt his, because his does so much more damage than yours. It's ridiculous. If you can interrupt both because you're amazing, then awesome.
That's great. Yeah, that's perfect.
It's not very easy.
So during the phase, you just want to continue to nuke down the Monstrosity and kill the living Ambers, interrupt the Amber Explosion, and once the Monstrosity dies, phase 3 will start.
Now, in this phase, he continues to cast Parasitic's Growth, but he stops casting Amber Scalpel. He'll also cast Reshape Life a lot more often, so you're going to have a lot of these vehicles all the time. He also gains a 50% damage buff and a 50% attack speed buff.
He also now causes the pools of amber around the room to shoot bolts at random players, dealing around 45k damage a hit. If these target an amber vehicle, then it heals them for 20% of their health, so it's hard to kill any vehicles at this stage.
Yeah, in this phase you will not be killing anyone, so that means that you're going to need to go around in these vehicles and consume these amber pools, so you won't go crazy and start beating the shit out of people, because regardless, these won't die in this phase. So if you do lose willpower, they'll still stay there because you won't be able to kill them because of this mechanic.
As a mutated construct in this phase, you really want to just nuke the boss as much as you possibly can, as well as obviously still interrupting your own amber explosion using the number 2 ability. So because in this phase, because quite a lot of you guys will be inside the constructs, the strike stacks on the boss will get incredibly high, and the debuff on him will just become huge, meaning your DPS will go through the roof. So the boss dies relatively quick in this last phase.
Yeah, so just make sure that when you're in the construct that you are meleeing him as well, because otherwise you are losing a significant amount of damage, because the amber strikes are on quite big cooldown. Now as the rest of the raid, what you want to do is just stack up, use Bloodlust, nuke the boss, use the whole raid-wide cooldowns, defensive cooldowns, all this shit, because the boss of course is doing increased damage, so just do your best just to get through this phase as quickly as you can. Of course, he's still doing parasitic growth. If you have got that on you, then make sure that you're kind of out of the group so you don't receive those AoE heals.
So that's it. Thanks for watching. If this guide helped you out, please drop a
So the differences in heroic is when you're in that last phase, there's going to be globules that are going to spawn. There's going to be on 2 players, and you're going to have to sort of run together so that they touch each other and they sort of explode. So you're going to want to be out of the raid. So think of like Sinestra and those what were those balls called that we could never.
Slicers.
Yeah, they're slicers, so it's similar to that kind of mechanic. The other difference is these pools that get created when you kill a living amber. 30 seconds after that pool is created on heroic, a new one will spawn out of there. So you will constantly get this like flux of new ones. The only thing I don't know is when the new one spawns, does that pool disappear? And I couldn't like tell from looking at some of the other videos. So we're going to have a lot more living amber pools on heroic than I think we would on normal. One of the things, if you watch the video that I linked in the actual watch party channel, let me see if I can bring it up.
Hey guys, how's it going? Mally here, and here's the 5th boss, Heart of Fear.
This is from beta. They somehow forced this guy here, Rocky DK4, as their tank. He was in the construct the entire time. So anytime anybody else got reshape life, they would just DPS down that construct to 20%, and that person just broke free. So, but that's a lot of I think that's a lot of movement for the tanks, and we'd have to ask like Reslak and HyperX whether they're comfortable with that or not. But I will say, when you looked at the number of stacks that he had up on the boss, it was like 51. So the boss was taking 510 extra, 510% extra damage at the end there. But I would encourage you guys to watch this video. I hate this guy's UI. It drives me bananas because there's shit everywhere. But I would encourage you guys to watch this video so you can kind of see what a recent fight looks like for beta as it relates to this. He's never in the construct, so I don't think we ever see that video, but it does give you a better idea from the more recent video there. So I also linked in the channel a how to construct video. That was, I think, from way back when. I can't remember, but I would encourage you guys to watch that just so you get familiar with what all the abilities are. So Amber Strike, Struggle for Control, Consume Amber, and then the Break Free, just so you kind of know what all that is going to look like. And that was it for this boss. The only thing I don't know is, do the absorbs work on parasitic growth? So you can't directly heal, but can you power word shield, spirit shell? I'm not sure on that, so that's something to follow up on. And then depending on what we want to do we want to 3 tank it or 2 tank it, depending on if we carry the tank to the last phase? So any thoughts from anybody? Did I DC? No. Okay.
I did link a game that someone made.
Okay,
You know how
I
like
was
they
gonna
had
ask you what that was because it looks like bait, and I was not about
like
to
the Terran
look into-
Gorfine thing with like practicing the ghost.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's basically lets you click your abilities.
There was one
browsed through.
for TOGC as well for kiting claws correctly on a
Oh,
Numerak.
really? What?
Yeah.
Wasn't there one like in not Blackwing Lair? What was Black Temple for the ghosts on Gorfiend? Is that what you were saying, Pat? The first one? I can't remember.
Yeah, the Gorfine one, yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, it's a game. I don't know how good it is. Jordy linked it. Someone made it. Yeah, I thought it was pretty fucking funny watching him try it.
Pretty funny.
It lets you know what the abilities are and how they work, like how you stack the debuff on the boss and then interrupt yourself with the one ability, and then as your willpower gets down, you suck up the shit off the ground. And
Hello and welcome to the Fab.
Yeah. So I encourage you guys then to play that game, post your scores. If we decide to do the tank only strat, you will still need to know at a bare minimum what all those do so that you can get down to 20% and break free. But you don't want to be running out of willpower before that happens. So, and looking at the videos, that willpower kind of deletes kind of fast. So just keeping an eye on that, making sure that you're never going to zero. So. But I think if we can figure out the constructs and people can understand like what they're doing there, then I think that that could be a heroic we try the first week.
We're doing full heroic the first week, dude.
No, we're not.
Keep in
We're
mind, it
human?
took Method 3 days to clear this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're easily doing it. First
We're
week.
not. We are not. Please stop saying that because we're not.
I have faith.
What, you think we're about to come in here for 3 days and not do it?
well, maybe the second week, not the first week. The first week we're
Yeah.
rating Thursday, Friday, and then the week after we're rating the Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
This is also Heart of Fear, not Mogashan Vault. So this is going to be a month after MSV releases.
Nah,
But
I believe. I trust.
okay.
I trust in Char
Glad
to
somebody
carry
does.
all of us.
I'm amazed.
You're a pumper.
Right.
What do you mean?
All right. So on that boss too, I don't quite know when we need to lust. I'm assuming we lust in phase 2 when the monstrosity's up to get the monstrosity down as quickly as possible. But we'll have to confirm that and look at some other logs. So, but any questions on that boss?
Did you take your quiz?
Oh yeah. So thank you to the 16 people that took the quiz. Of the people that got 100%, it is Shovel Ready, Kaiza, Fans, Resto, Trey and Dick Wizard don't count. Critmore, Shimothy, Setja, and Minx. So congrats, guys, for getting 100% on that.
5 bonus roll points to the person who guesses who Dick Wizard was first.
I mean,
It has to be Path.
Char?
No, it's Path. Char's
isn't
a
a
very
wizard,
close
no?
second.
no,
I
Trey
also
got
would've
that.
I also would have accepted Res Black.
Yeah.
All right. This is Grand Empress Shixir, so she's the last boss of Heart of Fear, and I did link the beta video from the group that did this. I would definitely tell you guys to watch that video as well. I really liked how they did the stacking and the strats for the phase 2, so we'll probably do something similar to that. So make sure that you watch that, and I think it also linked the logs. The normal and heroic aren't that far off. And this is one I think we definitely can do on heroic, but I'm also not sure if like the other ones, do we have to do all the bosses on heroic to do her on heroic? So we'll see when we get in there. All right, here we go.
Empress Shekzir, 25-man normal. In the Heart of Fear.
Yeah, it's another boss with a very annoying name, but it's still quite a good boss. It's a nice way of ending the instance, I'd say. It's got some quite clever mechanics. I like phase 2 the most, but we'll explain it. It is a 3-phase fight. But before we go into that, you want to bring 2 tanks, 5 to 6 healers, and any DPS, really. It's quite a standard setup that you want to bring, really.
Now, to start off, we're going to talk about phase 1, and in phase 1, there's 4 mechanics that you need to be aware of. Now, the boss will randomly apply debuffs to members of the raid called Cry of Terror, and this will make you do AoE ticking damage on the raid, and we'll talk about how to cover this in a moment.
Now, the second ability is Eyes of the Empress, and this is just a tank debuff. If it gets to 5, you become mind controlled and it transforms you and you do blah blah blah. It's bad. Don't get to 5. If you get to 5, you're shit, so just taunt on 4.
Another ability that the boss has is Dead Screech, and this will hit 5 random players, dealing about 80k damage. And there's not really anything you can do about this, but it is splash damage. You need to spread out by 5 yards.
Yes. Now, the main mechanic in this encounter, for phase 1 anyway, is Dissonance Field. Now, 2 shields spawn on the ground, and if you're inside them, they absorb any magic cast inside, and this includes both heals and damage. They just will not exit or enter the shield. Now, these shields slowly run out of energy, and once they hit 0, they will explode, dealing 220k damage to the raid, and even more if you are inside these shields. However, as 2 of them spawn, if they both detonate at once, you're going to be one-shot. The whole raid's going to take...
really, really bad.
Yeah.
So what you need to do in phase 1 is try and make it so these shields explode at different intervals, and you do this by standing inside them. If you do any heals or any damage when you're inside them, it will actually make the energy go down quicker. So you need to try and make it so the shields explode at different times.
Now, a very clever thing you can do is with the Cry of Terror, which we didn't explain earlier. So what you need to do with the Cry of Terror is that you need to run into these shields, as this will make it so none of the damage exits the shield because it's all being absorbed by the shield. It also make the shield go down faster. However, the damage will still be doing damage to you. So what you need to do is make sure that you leave the shield in order to be healed up if you are low, and make sure, of course, you leave the shield A, once your debuff has run out, or B, if it's just about to explode, because otherwise you are going to get hit really hard inside. Now, if there's an ample amount of time after your Cry of Terror is gone and someone else gets a Cry of Terror, you can just go run into that same shield and just make it explode again. It just makes it so there's less damage out on the raid. So basically, for the dissonance fields, just make sure that they explode at different times, and make sure everyone is topped up before they do explode, because they are still doing quite a bit of damage.
Now, throughout this entire phase, apart from those 4 mechanics, the boss's energy will slowly deplete, and once it does reach 0 energy, that's when the second phase will start. The time it takes for all the energy to go down is roughly 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So in phase 2, Shekzir will leave the encounter completely and start getting her energy back, which also takes about 2.5 minutes. So phase 1 and 2 are both on the same amount of time. It's on time basis, not percent or anything like that.
Now, this phase will end when she has all that energy back, and she will go straight back into phase 1. It'll go phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, until you hit the criteria for phase 3, which we'll talk about when we get to it.
Now, while she does sort of bugger off in this phase, you'll get hit with a load of different adds. There's Reavers and there's Windblades, and they spawn on each side of the room. There's 1 Reaver per pack, and there's 3 Windblades per pack.
Now, we're going to cover each ad by themselves, and first we're going to talk about the Reavers, which is mainly what your tanks need to worry about. Now, these have 3 mechanics. The first one is Poison Bomb. Now, this basically makes him throw out poison bombs on random players, dealing about 50k damage and then 10k ticking damage every 2 seconds. You can't do anything about this. It's just giving the healers something a bit extra to do, to be honest, because there isn't otherwise that much to do. So there you go.
There's another ability called Toxic Slime that the Reavers do, and this is like a shockwave. It doesn't stun though, and it does about 90k damage to anyone caught on it. So never stand in front of them if you're a DPS or a healer, and obviously, you know, tanks. You just got to face them away from the raid and make sure that no one gets caught by this.
Now, an interesting thing the Reavers do is also debuff your tank with poison-drenched armor. Now, this is a debuff applied to you, and when you run near a friendly player, you will also give them a debuff. However, this debuff is more like a buff. It makes it so you have a chance on your attacks to do 50k extra damage to anything, and this only applies to friendly players. So as a tank, when either you're not tanking or you can get your DPS to run up to you, you just want to kind of cover as many DPS as you can in order to just get this extra damage out, because why the hell wouldn't you want a damage increase? So if you're not tanking, go paint everyone up, and as DPS, if you can run over to your tank safely to get this debuff, then do it. Just be careful of the toxic slime, because you might be hit by that.
Now, the Windblades, they do a fixate, and this lasts 30 seconds, so if you do get this, just run away or tank them. They don't do that much damage. You don't really need to worry about that particular ability too much. They've also got a buff that they'll gain called Dispatch. This will make them do 70k damage to random players now and then. This is dispellable, so just make sure you keep the dispels up on that. They also got an ability called Sonic Blade, which is an empowered melee attack that interrupts spellcasting, and there's nothing you can do about this, unfortunately. So healers, you need to be very aware of this, so you need to make sure that these targets that are getting hit by this get additional healing.
Yeah. Now the main ability that the wind
It is worth noting we are not going to do this strat. We're probably going to do the strat that you're going to see in the other VOD, but just listen to the abilities. But this spread out is going to make it very difficult for us to control the fight.
blades do is sticky resin. Now they'll just throw a little orange blob on the floor. However, if you run through it, you'll gain a debuff that will slow you by 30% and do 25k damage per second. However, if two players meet with the debuff, so they both have the debuff, they will create a bubbling resin patch on the floor. If you run into this with the debuff, it will remove the debuff you have and add it to the pile. Once 4 stacks have been applied to the pile, so 6 total debuffs to make a full pile, it will create an amber trap. Now if you run a mob over this trap, it will stun them and deal 5% of their HP every 2 seconds. Now you want to have your tanks take the Reavers over these. Now you want to make 2 traps, of course, for 1 for each mob, and if there is any other resin, feel free to make more traps for the next phase 2 if you do have another phase 2. Now make sure you do not take a wind blade over this, as it is a complete waste. So wind blades have like fuck all health in comparison to the Reavers, and this is the only way that you can kill these Reavers in time for when Shexir comes back, which she will, and you do not want to have these Reavers up when Shexir is back. So it is essential that you have these amber traps for this phase, because otherwise you will not be able to have enough DPS to kill these ads. This is the only way you can do it. Now the wind blades will try and kill the trap once it has been activated, so they'll all stack up and try and just hit it down. So what you need to do is AoE them as they do this. Now they may actually break the trap, but the mob has probably been in there long enough to come out with probably about 10% HP or something like that. So you don't need to take him into a new trap or anything. You can just continue killing him, because you just need to finish him off. Now make sure you do not run into another player if you have sticky resin once 2 bubbling resin patches have been formed, as you'll just have like 50 little resin patches but no full amber trap.
So you'll just be wasting the debuff stacks completely.
Exactly.
So you need to make sure that you don't do that. Now, one thing we didn't mention about these ads, as well as having all those abilities, they also have a shared ability that when they're within 8 yards of each other, they give each other a 30% damage increase. So if there's 4 ads next to each other, they all have 120% damage increase.
Yeah.
It is important that if you do get a fixate from a wind blade, for example, that you do move away. You'll take a lot less damage from his melee hits if you just run away.
And tanks, when you are picking up those 4 ads at the side, of course they're all going to be doing 100%, 120% extra damage, so just make sure you pop a defensive cooldown and things like that, and just let healers just be aware that these tanks are going to be taking a really high amount of damage. So basically in phase 2, it's all about these ads. Shexir isn't here, you just got to make sure that you combine the sticky resin debuff to make one of the patches, and then just add 3 more to those patches to make a trap. Kite the Reavers over the top of it, and yeah, that's practically it. That's all you have to do. Just make sure the ads are spread out, and just dispel the wind blades as well when you can. And there's nothing really else to this phase. And of course, just make sure that these ads are dead by the time that Shexir comes back.
So you'll continue to have phase 1 and phase 2 every 2.5 minutes until you reach the 30% mark. And this is when phase 3 will start.
Now with the transition into phase 3, you just got to try and make it so there are no shields up. This is really bad for you if you have these dissonance fields, because otherwise they're going to explode during phase 3, and phase 3 there's already a lot of AoE damage going on. Also, you just want to make sure you have absolutely no ads. So you want to go into this as cleanly as you possibly can.
Now, she more or less drops all of her abilities, apart from one. She'll still keep the tank debuff that you need to taunt on 4 stacks, otherwise you get mind controlled and fuck everyone. So make sure you still taunt on 4 stacks. But she does gain a load of her new abilities.
She gains Shard energy, and this does 60k damage to 5 players. Unavoidable, can't do anything about it. Just, yeah, that's that.
Heal it up.
She also does Amassing Darkness. Now, this kind of works a bit like Prayer of Mending in a way. Basically, she'll do 60k damage to 1 random target. Then she'll do 60k damage to that same target, and then 1 other player. Then, after another 2 seconds, that target, that other player, and then that other player, and this will keep getting more and more and more until your whole raid is hit, and then all the damage will stop. This hits quite hard, and it is ticking every 2 seconds, So it's kind of a bit like a pseudo enrage sort of thing, a soft enrage. It starts getting to a point where you can't really AoE this heal up, so it's kind of like you got to rush this phase quite quickly.
Another one of her extra abilities is Visions of Demise. This is a debuff that's placed on 5 random players again, and after 4 seconds you will then do 35k damage-ish to all players within 8 yards every 1 second for 20 seconds, as well as being feared for the duration of this debuff. So you get the 4 seconds of like nothing, and then suddenly you do damage to all players around you, and then you get feared for a very, very long time. So the best way to deal with this is that when you do get this debuff, you run out as a group, everyone who has this debuff, and as soon as the 4-second debuff expires and you get the 20-second fear, you want to mass dispel right on top of all those players, so the fear gets instantly removed.
Yeah.
And if you do watch the time of the debuff, you can precast the mass dispel and get it instantly, so they're barely feared at all.
Now the boss will also do something called Consuming Terror. She will face a random player and cast a huge shockwave. If you're hit by this, you will take 200k and also feared for 8 seconds. So guess what, guys? You don't get hit by it. You're supposed to run.
Avoid it.
Just run through the boss, because in this phase you'll be stacked up all behind the boss. Just run through it in any way that you can. Just avoid it. It's very, very simple.
And the last ability that she has is Calamity. It has 50% of your current health, and it will tick frequently, so you need to keep everyone as high as you possibly can, as there is a lot of damage going out, and combined with other abilities you can get one hit, so you need to make sure that it's just a lot of fucking healing this last phase. It's got very much a new Barak feel from TOGC, if people can remember back that far. However, obviously the boss isn't getting healed by the amount of health that you have, so you're not being punished for people being overhealed, so you are supposed to go absolutely nuts and heal your fucking shit as much as you possibly can.
So for this phase, when you do get into this phase, you want to pull the boss down the stairs slightly, as there is a bunch of black shit on the floor. I don't even know what that is. Just don't stand in it. It's bad.
It's just ticking shit.
So just bring it down the stairs. That way you can move around properly for when she does do the Consuming Terror, so you can move out of them nice and easily. So you just want to be stacked up behind the boss with the tanks in front of the boss, and Bloodlust, and just nuke the shit out of her. So that's actually it, really. Just make sure that you are running out for these dispels, and making sure you're mass dispelling. Try and precast it. So just be good. And then healers, you just want to be healing as much as possible. You might want to make a rotation of your AoE heals, like your big cooldowns like Tranquility and things like that, in order to make it so...
Alright, the rest of that is just normal stuff. The biggest differences on Heroic is, you guys see this beam, there's 2 big differences. So this beam here, in normal it just channels on her, doesn't really do anything to the rest of the raid. On Heroic, it is going to be pick a person, and it's going to channel on that person, and that person is going to need to move out to the side, and we're going to need a tank to sort of go over there and pick up that channel, similar to like the inhale, exhale. The tank goes over there and picks that up. Not a big deal. The other difference is, and let's go back to where we have a dissonance field up. The other difference is there'll always be 2 dissonance fields, and on Heroic, one of these will become corrupted, which means it's just going to start spewing out a ton of raid-wide damage. So we're going to need ranged and anybody who has the Cry of Terror to collapse into that dissonance field that's corrupted as fast as possible, so that we can force that one to pop first. So on Heroic, we're going to sort of figure out which ones we want to pop first, depending on which one becomes corrupted. So it is worth noting, I think, that I'm not sure how big the damage is that goes into here, but you can't be healed. You have to step out if you're going to drop down. And I don't think you can use immunities or damage reductions, but that's something that we'll have to confirm. And then on the last boss, with the Visions of Terror, we can use tremor totems. So if you watch this video, at the very end, they use tremor totems to do a bunch of stuff. But just showing, and we're not going to play this whole video, and I, again, hate this guy's UI, but just showing you what they did in phase 2 that I really, really liked, because I thought it was well worth it. But what they did is, sorry, let me just bring it up. So all the Reavers are over here being tanked by one boss. The ranged are over here, and they're just nuking down these wind blades in a controlled stack. As they fixate on people, all those people do is just run backwards a little bit, but they'll they'll always run back to this group right here. the damage doesn't seem to be highly significant, just kind of looking at this in terms of the melee. But the one thing that we have to make sure if we're going to do this approach is we have to at least keep one of these wind blades up, because if they die, we'll no longer get the amber resin bubble for us to build an amber resin. But all they do is basically they build both those resins and then they drag the reavers over those while they kill that last wind blade. So you can already see how much better controlled these ads are. It's not everybody running all over the spot, not everybody kind of doing anything. But these wind blades never go over to that resin trap. So, and I think it's because it's not activated yet, because you can see they haven't dragged the reaver into there yet. So they're just building the resin trap over here currently, and then once it activates, they drag into the reavers. There is absolutely no point in DPSing these reavers because they have 40 million health. There's no way that will kill them in time before she comes back down. So this is probably the
Question.
strategy we'll deploy. Sure.
Yeah. Can one argue that they cheesed a bunch of damage because they have 4 DKs, 4 warriors, 4 hunters?
Very, very much so. Definitely could be. And raid comp is definitely one of this, because you'll notice like in their amber shock video, they've got 4 hunters, 4 warriors, a bunch of DKs. Absolutely get that. You can definitely cheese a lot of that, but the strategy of what they employed here, I think, is gonna work regardless of what the comp is. And this
Okay.
one, I
Yeah.
think they 7 healed, if I remember right, going and looking at their logs. So yeah, I would check this video out. Ignore this guy's UI. It's garbage. This bothers me. If your UI looks like this, please don't ever stream. But he does give a pretty good explanation, and you can kind of see how they manage the dissonance fields and all that. So, I linked the same people that did this, their Amber Shock video as well, and so I would encourage you guys to look at as that too. I definitely think that we can kill this on heroic for sure.
They're 6
Any
healing, by the way.
Are they 6 healing? I couldn't remember if they 6 healed or 7 healed. Let me look
Yeah,
at that log.
6 heals pretty fair. It's still pretty tough.
Yeah. What they used? They used 2. They had a monk, and they used a holy priest. Gotcha. Oh, they had a holy paladin. I don't know how. I don't know. I mean, being stacked up for most of that fight, except for phase 1 where you're sort of spread, I think is going to lend to having a lot of good AoE healers from a throughput perspective. So, and then, phase 3, we're all stacked up anyway. But yeah, watching the amount of damage they were taking, I was like, holy crap, this is going to be hard. But okay, so I would check this out, just watch it, see what they did. I really liked what they did. And then look at the Amber Shaper in stock video that they had, and check out that log to see how many stacks they had up there. So, all right. Any questions, thoughts? We'll less than phase 3 on this one too. Okay. And that was the last watch party. So we've gone through all of Mogashon Vaults, and we've gone through Heart of Fear. We will probably do toes, maybe ad hoc, but definitely as I start to prepare for those things as we get into that tier, because it's about 6 weeks after the release. We'll maybe do something on a Wednesday night if people can, but definitely not required. But I would definitely hope that everybody uses this time to kind of sort of prepare for that raid as well. So, to be very transparent, I've done no preparation for toes. I've focused mainly on Mogashon Vaults and Heart of Fear. All right. Well, if you guys want, I'm planning to rewatch some of the Geordie videos from Mogashon Vaults. If you guys want to stick around, you're welcome to. Not required. That would be the end of our required watch party. But just if that's the case, if you are going to stay in the channel, the only thing I'd say is please don't start talking, because then I can't hear the video. So I will go to another channel if that's the case. All Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys coming.